We here at NOlympicsLA are a broad coalition of community organizations based in California and Los Angeles. We are opposed to LA hosting the Olympic Games in 2028. There are a number of social crises that are plaguing this city that an Olympic Games will not make better and will in fact make worse. Primarily the displacement and gentrification of low-income communities of color, working-class communities around the Games venues, as well as an uptick in police militarization and the virtual takeover of local police forces by the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the Secret Service, leading to the kind of policing that will negatively impact low-income communities of color, as well as increased risk of deportation for our undocumented population.
Communities that are going to be impacted are really standing at great risk because even places like the city of LA that does have uncontrolled and just cause eviction, you see how well that's working out.
So it would be a mistake to not see these Olympics as part of a broader private and public sector strategy of pushing out low-income people who are disproportionately black and brown out of the urban core. And it's not even exclusive to Los Angeles, unfortunately. This is a global problem, right? And if you see it in that context, I can't even think of the number of ways that they will incentivize and create loopholes to do what they have already been doing in the name of the Olympics over the next 11 years.
In 1978, in Puerto Rico, they had the Pan American Games. The United States convened an international conference of anti-terrorist experts from Israel, Colombia, many other countries, and launched the FBI Anti-Terrorism Task Force, which now supervises the SARS collection of data and the fusion centers. Anything they put in place in '84 is still here. If this meeting had happened when the 1984 Olympics was happening in LA, we could not have come to this venue, because to enter this neighborhood you had to present ID that proved that you lived in the neighborhood, otherwise you're not admitted. It was cordoned off. So, the stuff that they do around these Olympics are part and parcel of the strategy they have for building a police state. Once they get those powers, they never give them up.
I mean, I think anytime you talk about putting more resources into policing, you're talking about taking away those resources from the things that actually make the people that we care about safe, right? So you're talking about diverting funds from things that could go to things like community programming, livable wage jobs, all of those kinds of things, permanent housing, we just talked about housing, and putting it into a police system that's designed to protect wealthy white folks from us, right? And so what that means is greater contact between black people, brown people, poor people with police, which threatens our lives. So we don't want to minimize what that means. When you talk about putting police on the streets, it means putting people with guns who are there trained to see us with targets on our backs and our fronts, right? And really jeopardizing the safety of the community. And so
the role of policing is to impose a specific order on specific people. And when you have an event like the Olympics, which is essentially a space in which the capitalist system is able to suspend some of the normal procedures, the normal democratic understanding of how decisions are to be made because of this special event, because of these special circumstances, it creates a situation that is extremely dangerous for the overexpansion of that policing power.
In his talk, Chertanich told a room full of USC law students, ostensibly those well-versed in civil liberties issues, that he could tell a drug dealer on Skid Row by whether or not they have clean socks. His suggestion was that if one had enough money to afford clean socks, they must be dealing drugs. For him, clean socks constituted probable cause for a search. Such a statement also provides a lesson for how policing and prosecution work. They operate to selectively sort those who are labeled criminal from those who are labeled constituency. We know that such policing and prosecution targets young people, people of color, Black and Latino people especially, poor people, trans people, disabled people, and activists most aggressively, although our relative safety in any given moment is always provisional. At the same time of this talk, the people of Skid Row were surviving and opposing the Safer Cities Initiative, an experiment in aggressive, regional, broken windows policing that began in 2006 under notorious former police chief William Bratton. The neighborhood thus became one of the most intense concentrations of police resources anywhere at any time. The initiative deployed 50 officers to the neighborhood at a cost of to a neighborhood of less than 1 square mile in a special task force. At a cost of $6 million, they focused on aggressive policing of things like pedestrian violations and other infractions and misdemeanors. As a result, Skid Row's residents, whose population comprised about 1/4% of the city's population, came to account for almost 13% of the city's pedestrian citations. Many at the time connected such concentrated policing to the opening of LA Live and the ongoing gentrification of downtown. I hope I'm wrong, and perhaps those of us in this room will fight alongside the activists in LA Can and make it so. But I think that the Safer Cities Initiative offers us a glimpse of what will be coming with the Olympics.
I can tell you, the note about counterinsurgency and how that kind of strategy is being adopted by the police is pretty clear. LAPD is the birthplace of SWAT, which is a paramilitary organization. We continue to buy, you can see it anytime you see a SWAT car roll by with an assault rifle inside. You see guys on riot patrol or riot duty when DSA was at Sheriff's Department out in full riot gear, even though the threat was, pretty clearly not present. And I can tell you, I essentially was a cop when I was deployed. That's the role of an infantryman on deployment when you're implementing counterinsurgency. You at least what the government thinks a police officer is supposed to do. We patrolled neighborhoods. We, kept the peace. We observed for people breaking the law. Occasionally we engaged with the enemy, searched buildings, things like that. And that strategy has been an enormous failure, and I think that that's pretty evident. It's only led to dehumanizing the population there, oppressing them, destroying relationships, which led to small uprisings on a weekly basis there, ones that you'll never hear about, but ones in which civilians were killed all the time. And obviously this isn't to, apologize for anything or rationalize anything we did overseas, but there was equipment that wasn't even deemed necessary for our job when people were trying to kill us every day, that the LAPD seems to think that they need, and they need to do their jobs and to patrol their neighborhoods. I don't know why LAPD or any police department in America needs a mine-resistant armored vehicle. I can't think of the last time there was an IED strike on a vehicle in America. And for a lot of people, this is something new. It's really evident. Say if you look at pictures of Standing Rock, you see what we would call a gear bomb going off on all the cops and DAPO employees there. That's a really evident example of a militarized police force and how they're used and implemented and deployed against unarmed civilians. And that's been going on for decades here in LA. So I just want to remind everybody that this is, if you think that the police as they are employed now are necessary for our safety, it does nothing but to destroy neighborhoods, destroy those relationships, and increase death and destruction.
When we talk about accountability, I think we have to see that historically, the only thing that has held the capitalist class accountable, and when we're talking about the Olympics, we're talking about the capitalist class, the IOC, the bid committee, their political servants, Eric Garcetti and the city council. They represent the capitalist class. The only thing historically that has held the capitalist class accountable is a united, organized, fighting working class.
We all think that the legislators have the power, the city hall has the power, the police have the power. That's a common misconception. And it's one of those things where power exists where you believe it exists. And until we start taking power for ourselves, we're not going to have it. until we start believing that we actually do have the power to go out there and change things, to pressure those elected officials who are supposed to be public servants to us, until we get out there and we convince other people that no, politics is not this thing that you don't talk about at work. It's this thing that you don't talk about in polite settings. No, politics is something you talk about always because it affects all of us.
I think it's easy for us to look at the situation as it stands now and what happened last week at City Council and think that this is a done deal and that this is over. But I think the breadth and the depth of the issues that have been talked about tonight by our panelists speaks to how there are all these problems that we are all acutely aware of that, you know, even if the Olympics disappeared tomorrow, we would still have to face these things. And we're ready to face these things. We're ready to face these things through the lens of this Olympic Games coming to the city and what it represents for as an obstacle to this work. But I think that we've got a room full of people here who are ready to do that work and who are ready to have these conversations and build this power and make these demands.
We also think that this is a financial boondoggle. Olympic Games historically go wildly over budget. The LA City Council voted to approve these games without a complete budget proposal and without a complete budget analysis, and yet they are willing to cover the costs should the games go over budget, which means less money for civic programs, taxpayer risk that is unacceptable given the crises that are currently plaguing our city. We should be fixing our homelessness problem, we should be fixing our housing displacement problem, we should be fixing our affordable housing crisis, and we should be fixing our extremely violent and dangerous LAPD. None of those things will get fixed by hosting the Olympics, and will only get worse.
The 1984 Olympics set the stage for the 1992 LA uprising. What is the likelihood that the 2028 Olympics will boil over into a repeat of 1992? And is there anything we can do to relieve some of that pressure?
So look, let's not wait until after to have the uprising. Let's do that shit now. Right? So we have an opportunity, okay? We have an opportunity right now to show why it's a bad idea, to show the kind of city that he's building, to show how he's over-investing in police to the detriment of community. We have an opportunity to uplift what he's done and what he's doing in terms of gentrification in black communities, brown communities. We have an opportunity to show how he has this face. What do we call him? Mayor Yoga Pants, right? Skinny jeans mayor, right? So yeah, you can look progressive all you want, Eric Garcetti, right? But you are not progressive, you are oppressive. The only form of racism is not the kind that we saw in Charlottesville. Just as dangerous as these white supremacists carrying tiki torches, right, is the smiling version of them. And that's what Eric Garcetti represents, right? So what, you got one black friend, right? I don't care. When you green light a police department that is the most murderous in the entire country, and that's now. That's not leading up to the Olympics. Right now, LAPD is the most murderous in the entire country. Right now, none of them are ever held accountable. Just today, the murderers of Carnell Snell got off. He wants it for his political ambition. So the question becomes, how do we use that shit, right? How do we use it to usher in the vision that we want? How do we have our uprising now so that we can say that you won't have an Olympics 2028. Everybody will be scared as hell to come here, right? If you don't fix this shit now. And so that turns it on us. We want to have it, we have 11 years to begin the uprising and to have it in such a way that we force them to do what we want ahead of 2028. And so that's what I'd like us to spend our time doing.